Hey Poima, I have your video here, or excuse me, your quiz here, and I'm going to go over the questions that you missed. So the first one, question number 3, is about a group of friends who's going to figure out how to split up a bill. We're writing an equation. To fit the story. So you had the equation correct. You did select the correct equation. And then also I think it just wanted you to solve it to get the right answer. So X in this case does represent the food bill. So we don't know what the food bill is, and there's a tip of $16. So we're going to take all of that and we're going to split it between 8 friends. And so then that shows the total is 76. Oops, and now we want to again split that between the 8 friends. And so the correct equation is that first one. So this is actually the equation that would tell you what the food bill is, right? So if I just subtract 16, if I take the tip away from the total, I'll find out what the bill is. But you'll notice that that's not an option. And so then what they're showing you, the reason why this one and this one don't work is because while they're multiplying this side by 8, they're not also multiplying this side by 8. And so you can't do that. And here they're multiplying by an 1/8 or dividing by 8, and they're not doing that over here. So this one doesn't work. The only one that works is that first one because they're taking an 1/8 on the left and then also an 1/8 on the right. Multiplying by 1/8 is the same as dividing by 8. I just think that it's kind of interesting because the question is trying to not figure out what each person pays, but what's the total food bill, I guess? Yeah, I guess if we wanted to know what each person paid, then it would just be dividing 76 by 8. We know what the total was. We know how many friends there were. So then if we actually go to solve this, we're subtracting 16 from both sides, and we get that X equals 60. So then 60 represents the total food bill. Question 4, Giselle trains 7 days per week for a biathlon. She covers a total of 20 miles cycling and running each day. She cycles a total of 105 miles each week and runs a certain number of miles per week. If she cycles the same number of miles each day and runs the same number of miles each day, this equation represents the situation. So if we take 105, which is the miles each week of biking, plus R, which is going to be, this is going to be how much running she does in a week. And we divide it by 7, we should get 20, right? 7 days in a week, and she's doing 20 miles altogether. So she's doing 140 miles between the two every week. So if you solve this, I think that's all it wanted you to do. Yeah, what describes the solution R to this equation? So there's a couple of methods here. Anytime you have a fraction out in front like that, you could distribute it through the parenthesis. You can actually multiply by 7 to get rid of it. Most of us teach our kids to go ahead and distribute that through. So I'm going to have to do 105 divided by 7 and hope that comes out even. Oh, good, it does. That's 15 plus 1/7 R equals 20. And we're going to subtract 15 from both sides. 1/7 R equals 5. And now we need to divide by a 7th. Dividing by 7 is a 7th is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So R equals 35. Right? If she's running 20 miles, or running and cycling 20 miles a day, there's lots of ways to actually figure this out. She's running and cycling 20 miles per day, so if we take 20 times 7, that's 140. And then we were told she does 105 miles of that is cycling, so then you could just take 140 minus 105. That'll also give you 35. So there's a couple different methods to this. But R is the number of miles that she's running each week. She's running 5 miles per day, but she's running 35 miles per week. And the reason why you know that it's per week here and not per day is that the 105 was per week. So we wouldn't add the number of miles we bike in a week to the number of miles we run in a day. We would also be adding the number of miles we run in a week. Schwartz family spent a total for internet 3 months. Each month they receive a $5.50 credit. Which shows the amount of internet service before the credit. Okay, so we have a total of $111.75. This one's a little bit like thinking backwards. So a credit is going to make your monthly bill less expensive, so it needs to be subtraction, and it looks like you picked the one that was addition. So we're taking $5.50 away from our monthly bill because we're getting a credit. That's like the company is saying here, you pay $5.50 less. It happens for 3 months, so we want to take 3 times that. It happens 3 times, and then we get $111.75 for the total. So there's the difference between the two equations. The one that's correct, again, it's a credit, so we're taking it away from our bill total, and it happened for 3 months, so we're multiplying that by 3 versus a third. And when you solve this, you do get 4275. Again, remember when solving, you can distribute through 3x minus 1650 equals $111.75. We're going to add $16.50 to both sides. So 3x equals, let's see if I can do this in my head, 128.25, and then we divide that by 3. Yep, we get 42.75. Then the last one you missed says, what's the best first step? Yeah, so this one does. It does teach you to distribute first. So the best first step is to distribute through the parentheses. And you wouldn't want to multiply by 3/4. You would want to divide by 3/4. That's your other option. Dividing by 3/4 is the same as multiplying by 4/3. So I guess if it had said multiply by 4/3 or divide by 3/4, sorry, excuse me, they have those two backwards. Yeah, anytime you have that number out in front of the parentheses, we're going to distribute through the parentheses first. Okay, so that was your first attempt. Let's take a look real quick at the second attempt. And that one we went over. Okay, Rita makes and sells necklaces. The materials to make each necklace cost $2.75. Last week she made 8, wants to make a total profit of 78. Using this equation, she determined she needs to sell each necklace for $7 to make a total profit of 78. What error did Rita make? Oh, okay, so this is another one, kind of like the credit on the bill. So if you're making necklaces and selling them for a profit, but it's costing you money, that takes away from your profit. X is her profit, but if I need to spend $2.75, it's going to take away from my profit versus adding it on to my profit. I'm not making more money by purchasing the materials. I'm actually making less money per necklace. And so then I would guess when you solve that, you do get $12.50. So that's the explanation there on that one. So we have an equation. What does the solution represent? So Hannah spends $4.50 each day to buy lunch at her school. After school each day, she buys the same snack. Okay, so that's X. X is the snack, how much it costs, right? Hannah spends $28.75 for lunch and snacks each week. So each day she spends $4.50 plus X, where X represents the cost of the snack. the total amount of lunch for the week, which is what the answer you picked, if she's spending $4.50 a day on lunch, and lunch is 5 days a week, we would take 450 times 5. That would be the total amount for lunch for the week. $1.25 represents the cost of each snack. And here we have, let's see, what does this one say? Which students are correct? Shauna, Dexter, and Talana are solving this equation. Shauna says, I can begin by dividing each side. No, that's not right. Right? You can never start an equation with division if you have a constant term like this in the back. She would have to subtract 2 first, and then she could divide by that. Dexter says, so Shauna's definitely wrong. Any answer with Shauna in it cannot be there. Dexter says, I can distribute. Yep, we know that that's probably going to be our first step. What does Talana say? I can multiply each side of the equation by this. No, wait, Shauna is right. Look what she, oh, wow, this is cool. Shauna, if you look here, so I tell students that when you're looking at an equation, addition and subtraction signs are what separate your terms. So if you are actually going to divide a side of the equation by a number, each term, here's a term, and here is a term. This also has to be divided by negative 2.5. And then the other side, which only has one term on it, also gets divided by negative 2.5. You can do that. You can divide everything by negative 2.5, but it's addition and subtraction signs that separate. What gets confusing here is that, well, Mrs. Herbst, I see a subtraction sign in that parentheses. Yeah, but it's being multiplied by this, so this is really one giant term. After you distribute, it becomes more than one term. So Shauna is correct. Not one of us is going to start solving that equation like that. Dexter does distribute. That will work. He distributes correctly. And Talana says I can multiply each side by that. So Talana and Shauna are actually saying the same thing. Remember that multiplying by a number, dividing by a number is the same as multiplying by a reciprocal. So if we're going to divide by a negative 2.5, that's the same as multiplying by 1 over negative 2.5. That's a reciprocal. That's ugly. The whole equation is a mess. Questions like this sometimes frustrate me because I'm not really sure what they're trying to test here. It seems too advanced to be talking about multiplying terms by a fraction or even dividing by a number. But they do happen to all be correct. Again, if I were to let's look a little simpler. If I had something like, let's not do that. Let me simplify it so it's not all these ugly fractions and decimals. If I had like 2x minus 8 equals 12, and I said divide both sides by 2. Okay, here's me dividing that side by 2 and dividing this side by 2. Well, on the left-hand side, I actually have 2 pieces, and they both get divided by 2. So 2x over 2 minus 8 over 2 equals 12 over 2. Okay, so now I've divided both sides by 2. That's kind of what you see happening here. When this first piece with the distributive property gets divided by the negative 2.5, those cancel. That's why we just have 5 minus n left over. But then they also have to divide the 2 by 2.5. So yeah, that one's kind of ugly. So you have another attempt on there. Hopefully this video helps. I know that writing equations from stories can be tricky. Just make sure you're really reading everything carefully. If you need any more help, let me know.